Other sort of aspect of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. It's not all murdered young girls.
Yeah,
95%, but
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
all.
yeah. And I still really, really gravitate to it and enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy and it's John. John, how are you over there, sir?
Splendid. Thank you for asking. And
Excellent.
yourself?
You know what? I can't complain. And even if I could, I think you would make my day better by offering me up a track to go off and listen to, because it is your turn today to offer up something to the crowd. Most importantly, I suppose, to me, because I'm going to be going off and giving this thing a listen. What have you got up your sleeve?
So we're going back to an artist that we have listened to before. That is Nicholas Cavern and his Naughty Pips, otherwise known as
I think I've
Nick Cave and the
translated that.
Bad Seeds.
There we go. Yes, success. Excellent.
So we have a track by him called "There She Goes, My Beautiful World," and this is a live performance on Later with Jules Holland.
Okay. Well, this has all the makings of a successful recommendation, because as I've come to discover through you, is that as good as Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds are, the best way to absorb them, I have found, is through watching them play live, because it is always such an entertaining hoot to do so. And on a venue like Jules Holland, I can only imagine this is going to be some really, really good shit. So I am very much looking forward to this. So let me take this offering, go off, give it a listen, a watch, and then come back and let you know what I think.
The wintergreen, the juniper, the cornflower, and the chicory. Well, all of the words you said to me are still vibrating in the air. The LDH and the linden tree.
Gabe sounds like a botanist listing off all of these different plants and herbs and things like that. It's really interesting. Also, like, I don't know what is happening there in the background. I mean, well, obviously music is being played, but is that like a lute that your man has behind him? I'm not sure. I love it, obviously, given all these stringed instruments, you're hearing a lot of like strumming and strings doing their thing. It sounds really great. And obviously your man Cave is already, exhibiting the signs of a classic showman that he is. So yeah, great start to this so far. I expect nothing less from a Jules Holland performance, or a Nick Cave performance for that matter.
The dead are rising from the sea. The trembling moon and the stars unfurled. But there she goes, my beautiful world. 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 There she goes.
Hats off to the backing vocals to sort of, round off the edges of Cave's boisterous delivery. Beautiful voices, and they really add some depth to what I believe there was the chorus, which oddly sounded somewhat familiar to me, and I'm not sure where I would have heard that little bit before. That's the only part to me thus far that sounded in any way familiar. I don't know if that's my brain playing tricks on me, or if at some point I caught a bit of this somewhere, somehow. But yeah, this is good shit thus far.
John Wilmot penned his poetry, riddled with puns. And Nabokov wrote on index cards and a lectern in his socks. St. John of the Cross, well, he did his best stuff in prison in a box. And Johnny Thunders was half alive when he wrote Chinese rocks.
That verse was really cool. Just all these like sort of historical figures to some, extent, religious, famous writers, what have you, musicians, and sort of what they went through to create their art, or how under duress or infirmed they still created, which is an interesting bit of perspective. And yeah, I just thought that was clever and interesting. Nice.
So if you got a trumpet, well, get up on your feet, brother, and blow it. And if you got a field that don't yield, well, get up your ass and oh it. Why look at you, you look at me, and deep in our hearts, babe, we're knowing that you weren't much of a muse, but then again, I weren't much of a poet.
Great energy. Yes. You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, great performance, man. It's funny watching these, especially when they're like have this much energy, when you're watching these like performances on, late night talk shows or whatever. And the crowd has to stay in their studio seats and just kind of I would it just screams energy, and I'm surprised that they're not like up on their feet. I understand why they're not, but like you would think in any other setting everybody would be up on their feet, dancing and moving and shaking to this stuff because it's got so much electric energy. Yeah, awesome performance. Don't be fooled by the name. These seeds, they're pretty good. Everybody was rocking out during this one, and God, he's got such a better idea of what a showman he is the more and more we do these live performances with Cave. And yeah, he's a really interesting cat. He knows how to perform and put on a show, especially for a crowd. Yeah, really, really good stuff. Loved those backing vocalists. God, even when they were doing like the pop bits, um, during like what wasn't the chorus, they added so much to the track, and obviously they did during the chorus itself, as I mentioned. Um, yeah, I I didn't pick up on much of the lyrics like that. One verse sort of caught my attention. And then he said something about like, if you have a trumpet, get on your feet and blow it. If you have a field that won't yield, you better get off your ass and hoe it. And all this sort of after that stanza about like the hardships and conditions that those aforementioned historical figures were in when they created their art. It's like you don't. I guess it's almost like you don't have much of an excuse. Like you gotta, if you've got it in you, give it to the world. Um, Sort of the vibe I got. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what I picked up on. Really interesting. Would love to know when this came out in kind of the timeline that is Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And given that John has like all of their albums, I'm sure he will be able to fill in the blanks for me. So let's get back to him and learn more, as I am very much looking forward to doing so.
Tommy and Tuppence is back. So you've had a listen to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Nicholas Gavin, 100 Naughty Pips. There she goes, my beautiful world, live on Jules. What did you make of the whole goddamn mess?
Well, things kick off, and it's already quite noticeable that there are quite a lot of bad seeds on this stage. One of whom looks to be strumming what I believe is a lute of some sort or something akin to that, which is interesting and not at all what I expected. So that was a welcome surprise. And as you can imagine, the song starts off with this very uh it's very kind of string and strum driven, with all these, you got a guitar, you got a bass, you got the lute back there strumming away. Cave is looking as sharp as ever as he joins and starts rattling off plants like he's reading from a botanical and herbal compendium of some sort, which kind of took me by surprise. I think he lists things like juniper, chicory, wintergreen, elm, ash, and linden tree, for at least from what I was able to catch. Very interesting stuff. The verse escalates and swells as it blossoms, pardon the pun, into the chorus, during which Cave howls, "There she goes, my beautiful world," as he's accompanied by some stellar female backing vocals from the four young ladies on stage, who kind of, we've talked about this before too in different ways, how one aspect of a song can kind of be the counterbalance to another part of the song, which then rounds off edges and makes it, a little bit more, I don't know, consumable. But which isn't to take anything away from the edge that Nick is providing here. But this is an excellent way to kind of smooth over the edges of his delivery. And I gotta say, I don't know what it was about this chorus that had me thinking that I had heard it before somewhere. So I don't know if I'd heard this in passing or just the chorus before or something like that, but it sounded familiar to me. The only bit of this track that sounded familiar to me was this refrain that he repeated during the chorus. So as the next verse kicks off, I begin to pick up more on this rolling bass work, and then the keys grab my attention more and more, all while Cave rattles off all of these instances of writers, musicians, and or religious figures who performed some of their greatest works while under some form of duress or while infirmed or imprisoned. Lyrically, I think this was my favorite bit of the track because it's just so interesting to hear these instances and kind of like the perspective that I think he's trying to give the listener when, communicating them. We get more boundless energy as the chorus reemerges. Again, made all that much more enjoyable because of those featured backing vocalists and Cave's raucous showmanship. He then calls on the trumpeter to get up off his feet and blow it. And I'm paraphrasing here. And then the farmer to get off his ass and hoe his field. And all this made me smile. And again, it's odd because I didn't catch every one of these lyrics, but the part that really caught my attention, botanical portion notwithstanding, is that part that I mentioned about, listing all of these figures, these artists or writers or religious figures, and the turmoil that they went through while creating some of their greatest art. And here he's telling, folks like, look, if you got a trumpet, play it. Like, and I couldn't help but go back to that verse where he's like, look at what these guys did. You know what I mean? If you got everything at your disposal, get up and do it. Whether you're a farmer with a hoe in a field that won't yield, or whether you're a musician with a trumpet on your hands and some time, make something of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm putting pieces together that aren't meant to be put together, or if I'm jumping to conclusions that aren't meant to be jumped to, but that's just sort of where I ended up. And I thought that was interesting because he is, he's telling us to apply some perspective here, which I thought was, again, very interesting. He then repeats the refrain about wanting folks to, I think, say this stuff about me, but I could be mistaken. But it sounds like that's what he was saying, which sounds like it isn't what he's saying at all. Okay, that's fine, good, because I was like, for a minute, I was thinking, you sound a little jealous, Mr. Cave. So you could rectify my interpretation when you provide me the actual lyrics. He does have this ability to sort of howl or bark his lyrics. So if I didn't catch that, that's on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chorus that kicks off again with Cave barking out, "There she goes, my beautiful world," seemingly with all the energy he can muster. And then the song winds down with the backup singer sustaining that final note, the drums working those cymbals, and that sustained resonance of the organ. It is another example of just a great live performance and Cave's talent for commanding a stage and the audience's attention, and just his overall showmanship. I will say that I found it, the one thing that I do find funny about any of these kind of studio performances for television shows is that no matter how energetic the song is, or how lively the artist is that's performing it, you get these people that are unfortunately, ass glued to their seats, kind of like, just not, it's like, if I was there, I would want to like get up and get into it and move my body. So it kind of just made me laugh to see the people trying to show some restraint as they sat there watching it from the live studio audience there on Jules Holland. That made me laugh. There's also this, I gave a lot of credit to the backup singers for the chorus, but there's also these other parts of the song. I don't know if it was the verse or what, I can't remember off the top of my head, but where they were just doing these like bops or pops that they were sort of vocalizing.
Yeah.
They were adding a little bit more to those portions of the song as well, that I really appreciated. So yeah, their presence and talents didn't go unnoticed. They really helped create or take this song to another level, I suppose is the best way of putting it. So yeah, really fun song, really great performance. I don't think it's my favorite that I've heard from him, but that's a pretty high bar. And if they don't hit that same mark, that doesn't mean that this wasn't still wholly a giant hit with me, because it was. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. This guy is a fucking character, unlike many others out there. So yeah, this is a great shout, man. I enjoyed giving this a watch and a listen.
Excellent. Yeah, I picked this because I came across two or three performances in the vault, as it were, from later with Jules Holland by him, and there's two of them I picked, this one and another one, which I think they're different in the way they perform, but they're both outstanding. I think this is one of his best performances. He's had that great, and I think it's just slightly different to other stuff you heard from him in terms of it's got this gospel feel to it.
Yes,
solely gospel.
That's very much worth noting. I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, this was less dark, twisted, which I love. Yeah. I love less dark, twisted Nick Cave, and more almost uplifting. Kind of is, even if on those parts where I may or may not be correct on my interpretation of them, but it is more of like a encouraging sound to it, and less discouraging or dirty or dark, kind of lascivious nature that some of his other materials have had in the past. So nice change of pace for sure.
Definitely. So this is from the 2004 double album, Abattoir Blues, The Lyre of Orpheus. Personnel for the album: Nick Cave, vocals, piano; Mick Harvey, guitar; Warren Ellis, violin, mandolin, flute, and bouzouki is what you saw there,
Oh,
which is a Greek version of a fucking note.
yeah.
Ish. Apologies to all Greek musicians. Martin P. Casey bass, Conway Savage, still a great name, piano, James Johnson organ, Jim Sklavounos on drums for Abattoir Blues and percussion, Thomas Weidler drums on Lyre of Orpheus and percussion. So they switched drummers for the two. They are two real separate albums, but they've just been packaged and put out together. And on guest musicians, of which I think some of these singers, well, I don't know, but I think some of these would have been within there. You've got it's Swedish, this name, so apologies. Asse Bergstrom, backing vocals, Donovan Lawrence, backing vocals, Gio Onyemaike, backing vocals, Lena Palmer, backing vocals, Stephanie Mead, backing vocals, Wendy Rose, backing vocals, and the album also features the London Community Gospel Choir. The album itself has a Metacritic score of 88, universal acclaim, as we well know. AllMusic described Abattoir Blues as a rock and roll record, a pathos-drenched, volume-cranked rocker full of crunch, punishment, and taste, and the Lyre of Orpheus as a much quieter, more elegant affair, more consciously restrained, its attention to craft and theatrical flair more prevalent. Paste magazine said, aside from the power of the music and lyrics, the set draws on Cave's compelling persona, part priest, part sideshow barker, crooning one moment and eviscerating the next. While this has always been the core of his talent, on Abattoir/Lyre, it is particularly rich and rewarding. And you kind of see that in the performance, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Stereogum ranked the album at 5th in its list of best albums in Cave's discography and described it musically as riotous gospel rock. It was also included in the book 1001 albums you must hear before you die.
Oh.
And as it just so happens,
Nah.
dropped off, still piping warm from the hands of a motorcycle courier, I have a copy here.
Oh, shit.
And here we have it. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Abattoir, blah, blah, blah. I've not had a look actually on this Scissor Sisters Arcade Fire. I don't think so. Morrissey, Euroquarry, average. White Stripes Elephant, fair enough. Oh, that's the previous year. Other Side, Other Way. Oh, is it? Oh, The Killer's hot first. Streets, Grand Don't Come for Free. Oh, that's very good. Franz Ferdinand. Great album.
Yes.
Yeah. What else on there? Oh, Richard Hawley, Cole's Corner. That's a lovely track. Oh, that's the following year as well. So yeah, what a time to be alive. There you go. So the lyrics. Now he does change the lyrics for this live performance, and I will go through this, and then I'll give you some of the bits he missed out because they're some of the bits I think you will enjoy even more.
Any particular reason why he omitted it? Because it sounds like that's what happened. Like there's more to this from the studio than there is to this live performance. Is there any reason?
No, he's just probably got on a roll and decided, fuck it. Oh yeah, shit, I've missed a bit out. Oh well, keep going.
Okay.
So he's got a lot to keep in his noggin. And they're slightly annotated as well, so I'll sort of skip to some of the notes that one of the providers put on it, which I think is quite interesting. Some of it's information, some of it's opinion. The wintergreen, the juniper, the cornflower, and the chicory. All the words you said to me. Still, actually, I will stop and just let you know at this point, because it'll make more sense. This song is actually about the creative process. It's really writer's block and suffering for one's art and the need for the artist to, the drive of the artist to achieve immortality through their work. And you get the impression from here that Nick Cave is actually suffering from writer's block, so he's writing a song about it. And there you go. And how he focuses on his muse and how you can create through adversity. So there you go. The wintergreen, the chicory, the cornflower, and the chicory. All the words you said to me still vibrating in the air. The elm, the ash, and the linden tree. The dead arising from the sea. The trembling moon and the stars unfurled. There she goes, my beautiful world. 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 There she goes again. And one of the notes say on this that there's actually, well, he's talking about this. That sort of there she goes, my beautiful world is like inspiration bolted like a horse. It's gone. And it's a sort of some frustration. You cry out, there goes my beautiful world, as he's trying to sort of get hold of what's going to help him create. So on to the next verse, and some interesting characters in this. John Wilmot penned his poetry riddled with the pox. Nabokov wrote on index cards while at a lectern in his socks. St. John of the Cross, well, he did his best stuff, imprisoned in a box. And Johnny Thunders was half alive when he wrote Chinese Rocks. Now then, so notes here. This is quite interesting. John Wilmot, the second Earl of Rochester, was an English libertine poet known for his satirical, witty poetry and rakish lifestyle. He wrote poems like Signor Dildo, which goes, the pattern of her virtue, her grace of Cleveland, has swallowed more pricks than the ocean has sand. But by rubbing and scrubbing so wide it does grow, it is fit for just nothing but Signor Dildo. And this is like a couple of centuries back. So yeah, quite funny. Nabokov, Vladimir Vladimirovich Nabokov, lived with his wife Vera at the Montreux Palace Hotel from 1961 until his death, leaving behind his unfinished final novel, The Original of Laura. The manuscript was on about 125 index cards and was found and then published by his son, Dmitry Nabokov, in 2009, despite Nabokov's wish for the manuscript to be burnt. St. John of the Cross, 1542 to 1591, was a Spanish mystic and ordained priest. His efforts to introduce reforms were met with much opposition, and he was imprisoned more than once, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Spanish, religion. Anyway, won't go there. And this is really interesting. So Johnny Thunders was an American rock and roll punk singer, guitarist, singer, and songwriter. He was a member of the New York Dolls, and then later played with the Heartbreakers and as a solo artist. Chinese Rocks, the song, however, was written by Dee Ramone and Richard Hell. And now, bear with me a second here, because this is quite a nice little soap opera, and I will just give you a quick breakdown of this. So Hell and Dee were in agreement that the song was mainly written by Dee. He says, the reason I wrote the song was out of spite for Richard Hell. You remember Richard Hell from television and got kicked out in the early days, because he told me he was going to write a song better than Lou Reed's Heroin. So I went home and wrote Chinese Rocks. I wrote it by myself in Debbie Harry's apartment on First Avenue and First Street. According to Dee, the song was about Jerry Nolan of the Heartbreakers calling me up to come over and go cop some heroin. The line, my girlfriend's crying in the shower stall, was about Connie, and the shower was at Arturo Vega's loft. He's the guy who, the graphic designer who worked for Ramones, where Dee, his girlfriend Connie, and Jerry Ramone all lived at one point. Dee wanted to record the song of the Ramones, but Johnny Ramone vetoed it, considering it was too obviously drug-related. Although they did a song called Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue. But anyway, Dee then took it to Richard Hell, who was with the Heartbreakers at the time. Dee called me one day and said, I wrote a song that the Ramones won't do, Hell recalled. He said, it's not finished. How about I come over and show it to you and we can finish it if you like. According to Hell, the song was by me and Dee, but Dee did 75% of it. I mean, all I did was write 2 verses out of 3. Dee wrote the music. The concept was his. And when the Ramones didn't want to do the song, he said, look, I've written one verse of the song, and of course, it's about heroin. How about you write the rest and it's yours? Richard Hell said, I brought it to the next rehearsal exactly as it was done by the Heartbreakers for all those years. I would sing it because it was a song I brought in. Dee, on the other hand, wrote his memoir. When Jerry was over at my place one day, we did some dope and I played him my song. He took it with him to a Heartbreakers rehearsal. In either case, the song became one of the band's most popular songs. As Hell said, after I left the Heartbreakers, they kept playing Chinese Rocks, and then they ended up recording it for the band's 1977 debut album, LAMF. and they put all their names on it, although nothing had changed about the song. They just added their names to it. Johnny Thunders, he had nothing to do with Chinese rocks at all. So, life is a complete melodrama. Um, I will go back to the other verse, but just to continue the lyrics, because they're very simple after this. Well, me, I'm lying here with nothing in my ears. Me, I'm lying here with nothing in my ears. I'm just lying on my bed with nothing in my head. Me, I'm lying here for what seems years. Send that stuff on down to me. Send that stuff on down to me. Send that stuff on down to me. Send that stuff on down. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes again. So, if you got a trumpet, well, get on your feet, brother, and blow it. If you got a field that don't yield, well, get up off your ass and hoe it. I look at you, you look at me, and deep in our hearts, babe, we know it. That you weren't much of a muse, but then again, I weren't much of a poet. I will lie at your feet, I will kneel at your door. Well, I'll ask for nothing. Come on, give me more. While up in your tower with your ivory and apes. Oh, come on, bring that stuff on down to me. And just with your ivory and your apes is a biblical quote of which Mr. Cave is very fond. And if I can find the bastard, here we go. From 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22, describing the glory and wealth of King Solomon. The king had at sea a navy of Tharshish with the navy of Harim. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tharshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So there you go. That's very small reference. Yeah. And actually, this is actually part of a larger verse which he omitted out. You just get a couple of lines, including that ivory and apes reference. Bring that stuff on down to me. 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 Bring it all around the world, because here she comes, my beautiful girl. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes, my beautiful world. There she goes again, and that's repeated, and that's the lyrics. So the verse that he misses out in entirety goes after all the stuff about St. John and Johnny Thunders. He then goes, Karl Marx squeezed his carbuncles while writing Das Kapital, and Gauguin, he buggered off, man, and went all tropical. Well, Philip Larkin stuck it out in a library in Hull, and Dylan Thomas, he died drunk in St. Vincent's Hospital. So obviously Das Kapital, volume 1 was printed in Marx's lifetime, but he died in 1883 of bronchitis and pleurisy brought about by guitar. And then the volumes 2 and 3 were then completed by his friend and collaborator Frederick Engels and published as his work. Paul Gauguin, as you know, left his Danish wife and family and settled, amongst other places in the Pacific, Tahiti, and fathered a few kids. Were very young native women there, but we won't get into that. Philip Larkin is one of Britain's most popular poets, and is an incredible poet, actually, and hilariously bitter. But he could have revelled in fame and glory, and instead, after graduating from Oxford in 1943, he became a librarian at the Bryn Mawr Jones Library at the University of Hull, and he worked there for 30 solid years until his death. And as we know, Dylan Thomas could not escape the delights of New York City. It was a bit too much for him. And then one bender too many, and off he went. Bless him. So yeah, so that's there she goes, my beautiful world. I just think it's a really sort of great song. It's really interesting, his references. Again, it's about creativity, writer's block, how other people have strived. It is inspirational in a way, saying if you've got something, do it, or find a way, even if you're up against stuff, that's some people who create their best stuff and they're up against it, and it's got this great overall sound. I think this live performance, he as you say, he's that sort of priest stroke Sideshow Barker, bit of bloody Elvis in there kicking away and stuff. I mean, it's just fantastic. Warren Ellis, that sound of that bouzouki, it's almost like a scratchy sound. It's great. It's percussive. And the whole sound of the band is very, very together as well. It's like it is almost wall of sound stuff. It's very big, which gives this overall sort of really impressive spectacular sort of show to it. So yeah, I thought it was a very cool
It was.
performance.
It was very cool. And I definitely love like knowing that it's about writer's block
Yeah.
makes me appreciate it that much more because, you know, if you can't write because of something, write about the something and then get through it,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and then,
It's
yeah,
so
and then
good.
there you go. What a it sounds so simple when you think about it, but what an excellent way to just plow through what would otherwise be a blockade and just turn it into your asphalt.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool. Good
Yeah,
shit.
so another sort of aspect of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. It's not all murdered young girls.
Yeah.
95%, but
Yeah.
it's not all.
And I still really, really gravitate to it and enjoy that stuff. But
Yeah,
this is a good change of pace, and I like the almost creating a character for himself on the album, this persona,
yeah,
as you described. It just gives it another aspect of interest and intrigue. So yeah, and he kills it.
he does. He does. Yeah, and you got to remember, even though it's quite nice, the album's still called Abattoir Blues. So he's still on track there. Brilliant. Okay, well, I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy. There will be more. At the end of Bond films, James Bond will return.
Yeah,
Nick
of
Cave
course.
will return.
Yes.
Folks out there,
Inevitable.
tell us what you think. Please hit the like button if you like this. Send that stuff on down to us. Go on. And please drop some comments. We love to hear from you what you think about this track, this performance, and this albums. It is right up there, I think. Probably not top 3, but like one of the reviewers said, top 5. It's a really, really great sort of double album, and it's very interesting. But tell us what you think. Love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We need all the help we can get, brother. And we really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. That being said, thanks so much for watching. And we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.